February was a month full of fantastic stories that made me feel everything from jaw-dropping true stories and biographies and autobiographies that inspired me to all kinds of swoon-worthy romances that brought out all the emotions and tears because it's February, right? I kind of had to load up on the love stories. But I am covering all kinds of genres because I made myself go through both. Let's dive into my 17 February reads. I have a very needy cat here, very, very needy cat here, but we are going to try this. This is the February reading wrap up. It was a short month, and I keep saying I'm going to read less, but that doesn't seem to be happening. I read 17 books, but two of those were really short stories. So we are going to run through them. I have had some really fantastic reads this month. And I keep trying to fluctuate between nonfiction and fiction because I can get lost in fiction, but some of those nonfiction ones have been fantastic. So we're going to go by category. Okay, so these are going to be my nonfiction and biographies. First, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Actually, I have it behind me. Let me just grab it. Here it is. Untamed. I actually don't know when this came out, but I know there have been a lot of them sold. Anyway, I had not heard about her prior to picking up this book. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but honestly, I had not heard of her before, like I said, but this has covered so many topics that are important for women to hear. And there is this undertone. We are allowed to speak up, that we are allowed to be different, that we don't have to be mom martyrs, that we don't need to shame ourselves and tame ourselves to what society wants us to be like or says that we should be. So overall, and it's done in like a funny, heartfelt, authentic way. It was great. One thing that really stuck with me that I want to take away is I want to raise a treasure hunt child. She uses that phrasing where she wants her kids to be really excited to discover something and share that with her. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's something that society thinks is perhaps more taboo or like things that are less than considered to be, that is. So in the context of all these things that we want them to try treasure hunt, right? And find things about themselves and to be excited to share that with us instead of feeling like they have to hide it because it's not what people expect them to be. So that was one big thing that I took away from it. And I want to go back and look at the parts that I highlighted or noted just to refresh because there were so many good nuggets in here. And it's like short little chapters, so you can kind of take it in little bursts. It's fantastic, in my opinion. There are a lot of things also about the church as well, because she did come from that Christian faith background, and people said, well, how can you love another woman, marry another woman, and still be consider yourself Christian and all that stuff? So it addresses so many really deep rooted conversation topics that we should be asking ourselves of what it means to be that and what is the core at that faith is love, right? It is love, loving everyone, um, regardless of who they love, how they show love, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. She also talks about like the history of the birth of extremists. And it's just, like I said, I could keep going on this, but there were so many good topics that were thought-provoking and things that everybody should be talking about. I think that's, oh my gosh, this cat's butt is in my face. I do not want butt face. Okay. I keep getting distracted. It's a problem with lives, right? But maybe you like the cat butts in my face. Anyway, I'm getting better at seeing comments. So if you're hopping on and you want to join in on the conversation, please do, because I often make YouTube videos where it is not multi inclusive, right? I can't see what people are thinking unless they comment. So I would like to see your comments and answer them. Uh, Please add that, and I will try to be good at looking at the notes that I've jotted down as well as looking at the screen. So, okay, did I talk about anything else? also really loved that she talked about focusing on your anger because there were so many things that she could be angry at her husband who cheated, at society, at family who kind of didn't encourage some of the things that she probably should have explored earlier in her life. But in all those things, she says, look at the anger and what it's telling you because it's probably telling you more about yourself than about the person that you are angry at. Okay, anything else I want to say about Untamed? No, fantastic, fantastic read, regardless of where you stand on different issues, women's rights, all that kind of stuff. But she also talks about like raising a boy and two girls and things that she wants each of them to know, right? And to not be ashamed of themselves, feel like they have to tame themselves. Okay, so that's that. Spent longer than I thought on each book. If I'm going to get through 17 books, this is going to be a long video. Okay, the second one I read was an arc. So I received this. It is not out yet. Actually, I don't know if it's out. I should look up the dates that these come out. And oh my gosh, the nails are so long. I gotta clip his nails. This Far by Allison Holker. If you all know, um, So You Think You Can Dance. She was on So You Can Think You Can Dance, was married to Twitch, who this book takes you through this journey of what she went through in losing him in sudden suicide and totally being blindsided by all of that. But it's more than that, it's also her life story of how she got to where she was, and then obviously dealing with the grief for herself and for her kids and all of that. And so I think it is a must read for everyone on so many levels because, again, it touches on so many heavy subjects that everybody should be talking about, but there is so much humor and love and vulnerability. It's a beautiful memoir. Um, I liked watching So You Think You Can Dance, especially from the early days, and so it just had a different spot that it hit in my heart. And I remember seeing the news about Twitch and going, "Oh my gosh, he looked so happy. He looked like he was such a ray of light to everyone, but you just don't know what people are going through, right? And so, and then to see her side of things um, on that story and the anger that she felt of like, oh my gosh, I did not know my husband. I did like he didn't feel free to share that with me and the hurt that she goes through in dealing with all of that. Right. And kind of this anger of you left us with our kids. We were planning for more and what happened? And so for anybody that has gone through grief, obviously this is another different kind of grief. But you can really feel the heartbreak and the anger, and it's okay to have all these different emotions. Because one thing that stuck with me is she was like, I have to set boundaries because everybody says, wow, he was such a great person, such a great person. But there is this very different side of him that she was angry at, right? And rightly so, because you were planning for these things and she's like, you took this away from our kids. Like our kids loved you and lost their dad. And oh my gosh, I'm getting teary just like thinking about it. And thankfully I've never been through anything like that. But it is hard for knowing that he chose to do that versus it was an accident. She very clearly delineates like she has a hard time even speaking with people that have lost their partners if they were accidents versus taking their own life, right? Because for her, it was like a choice that he made, and she was very angry at that, but also loved him so dearly and couldn't imagine not being part of like talking about those things with him, right? So anyway, again, I'm diving very, very deep, but she also talks about the multicultural um, stereotypes or things that were said about them on social media or even from family, because one person was black, one person was white. And so there were all these things that were coming at them when they got together, right? And so there's talking about that. And she was a child that came from not very much money and she was in the dance world and she felt inferior to all the kids that had all this money and the parents were throwing all this money at dance and getting them into the right places, right? And so for her to come through that, and then she became a young single mom. So there's all of these different things that made her journey really special for her. And then you see this all play out. And I remember she said, she shared this little story about how she pushed out her child, her first child with him to push it. She had a playlist and they were really different from I think what nurses have heard, but I'm sure labor and delivery nurses have heard all kinds of um, different playlists and things, but she pushed her child out to push it, which was just kind of a funny thing. And given that I have also given birth to a child, it just, I don't know, made me laugh and giggle, and it was fun. So all that to say, through all the pain, the hurt, and all of that, she is absolutely trying to make the best out of losing her spouse and trying to really pave way for mental health and making sure that his life was not in vain or his death was not in vain, so that others feel seen, feel heard, and can heal. And regardless of what kind of experiences we've all been through, I think we should read it because we all need different perspectives and development of empathy for everybody we encounter. And may we all be the light and the love in this world because we have no idea what that other person is going through. Even those people that drive you crazy in the supermarket lines, on the roads, on whatever. Let's just think of other people, of what they might be going through. A little grace in this world can't hurt. Okay, the third book that I really, really enjoyed, and this was a shorter book. So if you were looking for a shorter book that makes you laugh out loud, if you were a parent, I think I already got one friend to read it because I was recommending it. It is Things My Son Needs to Know About the World by Frederick Bachman. And this was my first book by him. I have Anxious People up here to read. I don't know if you can see it back here, but Anxious People. I heard great things, and so I have it. I just haven't read it, but then I saw this one. This is his nonfiction story to his son. He has multiple kids now, but this was when his son was still very young. And it is just super funny from the dedication. He was just like, just to paraphrase it from my memory, it was, in this book, I'm gonna say all kinds of things that might embarrass you. I might do things that will embarrass you as you grow up, but remember that you started it first by hiding my keys or something like that when you were a kid. So again, from the dedication, it made me laugh. The first chapter starts talking about poop and how when we become parents, we just really focus on poop. And it is absolutely true. Those things might be really weird to you, those that are not parents, but when you become a parent, you absolutely relate to that. And then there's so much more that goes on, right? And it also talks about some really deep things about showing the dad side of things. Obviously, I am a mom. I am not a dad, and not all moms are the same. Not all dads are the same, but it's kind of funny to see his perspective and his acknowledgement that he does not listen very well sometimes, or maybe their communication isn't very good sometimes. But he also talks about love and how he might not be the expert in love, but he knows how much he feels deeply for his wife and his kid. And so, um, all all some really great topics of conversation, but so many funny things that I was laughing out loud, and people probably thought I was crazy. But I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's not a super long book. So if you are looking for ways in which you want to communicate to your child or have thoughts about what it means to be a good human and a good man in this society, because he also talks about that in the generations of how his dad and his grandfather were not perfect, but each generation they try to do better. And that's really all we can do, right? As parents, like nobody is going to be perfect. If you think you're perfect, you are absolutely wrong. I am definitely not perfect, but we all try to get better and pass on better habits, ways to love, ways to communicate, ways to just be a good, decent human being that cares for other people, right? So love, love, love it. Go check it out, just if you want to laugh Why not? And if you don't think it's funny, come back and tell me. I would love to have conversations. If you go read the books that I recommend, if you loved it or if you didn't, and that's okay for us to all have differing opinions. I don't expect everyone to have the same opinions, obviously, because we are all different people and we just have different experiences that we relate to different things. And if you didn't love it, I want to hear why. I want to hear what you didn't like and just have conversations about it because books are supposed to be thought-provoking. Books are supposed to be connecting. Books are supposed to move you in different ways. Okay, moving on. The fourth book that I read was The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. Anybody love the Gilmore Girls? Because I absolutely did. I don't know if I'm dating myself, but absolutely loved it. I remember reading Lights Out. I don't know if anybody else has read Lights Out, but it's a dark romance, right? Also super funny, and there is a reference to Emily Gilmore in there at the end. I think she said like, "Oh, did I just get Gilmored? Emily Gilmored," and I was laughing out loud at that. So the reference is she is Emily Gilmore, Kelly Bishop on the Gilmore Girls, and I saw this book hit the Good Choice Awards. That's how it got on my radar. And I love the Gilmore Girls, obviously, so I had to read it. The first good bit of the book is more of her history, and while it is really interesting to see the different ways her life took, and she was a dancer before, like she wasn't planning to be an actress or anything. It's just really interesting, right? The paths that people take to get to where they are. But it was really her story of her husband Lee and the Gilmore Girls on that captivated me and sucked me in. And I loved how raw and straight shooting her story is and the life lessons that she shares with us because she is an older woman that has been through a lot of different things, a lot of different changes in her life. And I truly, truly believe, like she says, that the people that surround us or that we surround ourselves with is so important, if not one of the most important things in life, right? And that we are really fortunate to be loved and to be able to love the people that are entrusted to us. And we have this privilege of doing this. So thank you, Kelly Bishop, for echoing that sentiment of we are very, very fortunate if we have people that truly deeply love us and are there for us no matter what, and people that we can do the same for and um, really care for. So thank you, Emily Gilmore. I mean, Kelly Bishop. And it's fun to hear her voice too, because she reads it. So if you read the audiobook version, she reads it and you're like, oh, it's Emily talking to me. Okay, the fifth one was Showtime, but by Jeff Fletcher, and that's SHO because it is about Shohei Ohtani. And it is a biography of his life and how he rose to the fame and the place that he is at. It was a lot of baseball facts and history at the beginning. So for those people that are really into baseball and already know everything, there might be a lot of stuff that you're like, I already knew that. But I'm not really a huge baseball fan. I just watch it sometimes, and because all of Japan loves Shohei Ohtani, right? And all the Japanese people in America and everywhere around the world love him, at least I think. So I wanted to know more about his backstory and just his journey, right? Because to every person that has made it to the top of whatever they are, there is a huge journey that has been behind that. And so there is no like abnormality to this. There was no easy way for him, but he is unlike any player in the world, right? There's no debating that. He is amazing. Yet he was underestimated. He was told over and over he wasn't ready. He was called not good enough. All of these things. And while we're not going to be the next Shohei Ohtani just because we don't give up and we keep going and we practice and we whatever. Some things are just not in our genes, right? Not that you're going to play baseball, but whatever it is that you're pursuing, it doesn't mean just because you practice, you get to the top. However, there is something really, really inspiring about how we need to keep going, how we need to keep getting better, how we need to push ourselves to prove people wrong. We can't let the people that say no, that say you can't, the people that would tear us down to win, right? We need to keep going and do the best us possible. And hopefully, you reach your goals, your successes, whatever that looks like for you, even if it is not on the same scale as Shohei. But anyway, fabulous and just a fascinating read for me as a non-baseball player, or non-baseball history knower. Okay. All right, let's move on to the romances that I read this month because, or last month, because that was the other big category that I read. Out on a Limb. So I read two books by Hannah Bonham Young. Out on a Limb was the first one, and Out of the Woods is the second one. It is a duet or a two-part series. You don't necessarily need to read one or the other to get it, but it is better. They are um, what is it called? Interconnected standalones. So I would recommend reading both and starting with Out on a Limb. Both of them, they make me laugh out loud and hit my heart with all the feels. There are a few authors that I know deliver every single time, and I've talked about them. Abby Jimenez is one of them, Kate Stewart is one of them, and Hannah Bonham Young is now in that with the two that I've read. I think she has maybe five or six out so far. But I absolutely want to go read all of them and find out if she is like I love all of her books, just like all the other authors that I've loved every single one of the books that I've read. Um, but Out on a Limb, so I'm going to backtrack with Hannah Bonham Young talks a lot about the marginalized people and makes them main characters or marginalized people in society, I should say, more so, and brings them into main characterness. So, Out on a Limb are two people with disabilities, as far as physical disabilities. And she herself has what Win, the female main character, has, which is a smaller hand. And so I love that she shares parts of herself in both the dedication, the after, to share where this came from, and that she wanted to write a book that really spoke and that she poured into with how she feels, with her life experiences, with people that have shared life with her, right? And so this was a female main character that has a physical disability and a male main character that has a physical disability. He lost his leg. They have a lot of inside jokes about their disabilities and things, but they have a one night stand. She ends up getting pregnant, and it is their journey of saying, "Yeah, we're going to raise a parent together," but they obviously fall in love because it is a romance, right? I also liked the nerdiness in it and the dad jokes that were in it because I was not the super popular kid. I could see myself in so many different ways in these two characters. And I loved that they embraced this new journey into parenthood and really took care of each other in healthy ways. So it wasn't these, I don't know. Sometimes I get really annoyed by what I feel like are childish manners of approaching the relationship. Anyway, I felt like it was a very mature way. You obviously still have the ups and downs of relationship. There's drama in the story, all of that, but I felt like it portrayed things in a very healthy way. So I really, really liked that. And Hannah Bonham Young, I'm going to go read more of her books. I would say this one is couple goals. Yeah. And then you have the second one. Oh, I wrote down the only thing that I did not like was how many times the word honey came up as they were talking. I don't know why it irked me. I know everybody has different pet names for each other, and a lot of people do use honey, but I don't know. I just I just did not get that much. And then the Sarah Wynne Caleb relationship. So Win, short for Winifred, is best friends with Sarah. They've been best friends since like babies because their moms were single moms that were best friends. And then Caleb is Sarah's like high school sweetheart, who their story is Out of the Woods, which is the second book. But they have like this threesome because they've gone to high school together. They've known each other for a really long time, and it is really cute to see how Caleb takes care of Win too and is there for her. And um, I loved all the characters. And so it makes sense that she wrote another book that has these other characters too. And I just can't wait to hear more about that story behind Cora and why she is the way that she is. I don't know if that's going to be another story, but that is Caleb's um, sister. And anyway, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it should be fun to see that too. But the second book is Out of the Woods. And this one is the Sarah and Caleb story, right? And again, Hannah Bonham Young is bringing in parts of her because she has been married to her um, sweetheart from, I want to say high school, but they got married young, basically learned to become an adult together. And so it is this story, the book is Sarah and Caleb. They got married young. Um, and there's a story behind that too of why they got married when they did. But the premise is they go out into the woods in this retreat. They are not woods people. They are not camping people. They are not outdoorsy people. But at the suggestion to have this be like a marriage boost or retreat or a marriage rekindling, they go out into the woods and they have this revelation of things as they go and come back more connected than before. They have been married for 15 plus years. Um, Oh wait, that's me. That's me. That's me. Those are my notes. Okay, I can read my own notes. Um, so I think it hit different because I have been married for 15 plus years, and so you kind of start seeing this. And I don't have the we got married at a really young age, so I didn't have a chance to learn about myself growing into an adult and getting my own career and all of these things. So we differ in that. But as you are married for longer, there are different things that come up that you need to make sure you're still connecting, make sure you're still prioritizing each other and what your needs are and all of that, right? And so to imagine doing that when you're a teenager still when you got married and you change so drastically through these different phases of life, of college, and then finding your first job and all of these things, right? And so I loved the way in which these characters grew, the way they learned from their parents in different ways. Like one had parents that were really not there for them. The other one had a single parent, right? That was always there for them, like showed them different love, but financially could not really provide too much. And so there's this dichotomy of different backgrounds, but I love that it showcased these things and that there is love and support from the people around them, whether it is the people you expect them from or not. And found family is one of these things. And I only took a half star off for this one because the whininess and the not togetherness and the lack of self-esteem by Sarah was a lot, a lot. And I was like, come on, Sarah, get it together. You are a strong woman. You have, like, anyway, I was cheering for her to come out of it a lot sooner. Sith and Sparrow, Bryn Weaver. This is a very dark romance. If you have not read, there's three books so far. There are, actually, this is the third of the trilogy. So there was Butcher and Blackbird, Leather and Lark, and then Sith and Sparrow are the third one. I read all three in the series, and this one was my favorite. I feel like it wasn't as crazy as the other ones because there are serial killer things throughout the whole thing. Dark romance, like I said. And I really like the dynamic between Rose and Fionn. There was a trueness of seeing each other for who they were, their faults, their dark parts, accepting each other through that, being there for each other, and a lot of humor in between. Really liked it. If you um, are okay with dark romance and it gets quite spicy. So if you're okay with spice, if you're okay with dark, if you're okay with all of that, um, it was great. And it was also seeing the snippets of the other two stories woven in. So I would highly recommend you read one, two, three in order, because there are spoilers in there for the other two if you haven't read them. Um, and for the other ones, domestic abuse is not my thing to read in books. So in here, it was minor enough that I didn't have it be a complete turnoff. It was really refreshing to see how much Rose wanted to help other women that were in bad situations, but she often falls short a lot of the time, in very funny ways, but they're not actually funny how they play out, but in the story, in a fiction manner, it is funny. If you know, you know. Also, Barbara. I'm just going to leave it there because I'm not going to spoil it, but there are funny animals in all the different books and Barbara. Anyway, it's a fun, moving, and lovely wrap up to this dark romance trilogy. Guy on the Left by Kate Stewart. I've told you I love Kate Stewart books, and I have a whole video on how to read Kate Stewart, why I love Kate Stewart, all of that. But Guy on the Left is part of a trilogy. Troy has my heart. What a reminder that what you see on the outside or what you hear isn't always the whole story. The way that he persisted, the way that he loved with his whole heart, even though she was not letting him in. Okay, so the backstory is he, as a high school kid, ended up getting a girl pregnant, an older person, and she was a teacher, so not the same school, but obviously there were things that shouldn't have happened. And she could be in a lot of trouble. So she was like, this is not happening. You are not seeing my child. You are not to be part of it. All of that. So that is the backstory, but he obviously is not giving up. He wants to be part of this child's life, wants to be part of her life. He cared for her. He lied, but there were things they both did that they regretted and they did not expect to be pregnant and all that, right? So um, I love the way that he persisted and loved with his whole heart, and also the way that he had a great relationship with mom. Being a boy mom, that just tugged at my heartstrings, I think, and the fact that he wanted to be such a good dad, and you see him be such a good dad throughout the whole thing. I absolutely loved it. And I know Kate Stewart is not a parent, but she has said that she is part of her nieces and nephews' lives and has seen so many people go through parenthood. So she writes about it in an amazing way. And yeah, her parenthood romances, actually, I'm a sucker for. They're so great. And Dante is the kid, and he's so funny. He's so awesome. Made me laugh so much. All the deep parenting moments just made me feel very, very deeply in this book, and Kate did it again. People say number three, the guy in the middle, is even better, so I cannot wait to finish this trilogy and learn more about Lance, who you see little snippets of in one and two. Definitely read them in order because there's the guy on the right, the guy on the left, and the guy on the middle. It's a football romance series, but they definitely go in order, and there will be spoilers if you do not read them in order. I can't believe she makes us love every single character. I'm always amazed, but she absolutely does. Up Close and Personal by Anna Holguin was an arc that I read. If you are a Peloton Soul Cycle lover, you are going to really, really enjoy it. It was really cute. I immediately thought of how Peloton got so popular and could relate with the cynic in Silas, the male main character, who is writing an article about the rise, and he's supposed to go uncover different things. So that is the male main character. The female main character is the a very popular um, cycling personality, and she is very popular in social media, all these things, right? And so it is the story behind her and him, obviously. But I love that there was so much development in these characters and the backstory behind why Jo did what she did and how she came into the profession that she did. And there's so much truth to the fact that people are really drawn to people that are open and vulnerable. And that is why she was so loved, because as a instructor, because there's so many different instructors out there, right, in the online virtual fitness world, but there are certain ones that you connect to, right? And so it was a fascinating, thought-provoking thing of, oh, why do I like the people that I like? And you will do, you will go take their classes specifically, right? There are so many like cycling classes, so many Zumba classes, so many whatever classes, but there are certain ones that you're like, I'm gonna go take their class. I really enjoy going to that one. And then you develop this community, this whole thing. It has become a huge thing. And so to think about the things behind that, but there's also a lot that she talks about social media because there is this trauma that Jo has gone through from the beginning of when she started to rise in fame unexpectedly, and there are good and the bad that come with fame. And so it is good reminders of all of that. And as I have a presence online, I think about that as well of what does this mean if I were to become really big? I'm not really big, right? But what does that mean if I were to become really big? There are tons of implications for that as well. The messiness at the end of the book was a bit predictable. So I can't say it was like a absolute 5 star, but absolutely enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Loved the importance of friends throughout the whole storyline too. Um, I can see other stories from the other characters coming out in the future. So anyway, go read it. It's a fabulous arc that I was able. Two short stories by Abby Jimenez. Love Abby Jimenez. The first one is The Fall Risk. The second was The Situationship. I've been meaning to get to that one, but The Fall Risk, it was a free if you have Amazon Prime, so people can read it. But as of March 1st, it is officially out for purchase. I love everything Abby, like I said. So this just did not disappoint, even though it's a short story. I feel like short stories are hard to really pack in all the goodness, but it's under 100 pages. I've read several short stories from other authors and I just went, they're okay, even though I really like the authors. This was great. It was a super cute short romance that was perfect for like the Valentine's Day time frame. In true Abby form, she covers a heavy topic with humor and Sunni romance, and you gotta love a man that gets along with the grannies and is popular with the grannies and is there for them, cares for them, all of that. And then she also has fantastic pets in all of her books. So there's a fish called Slim Shady. So that just made me giggle. I love it. Thank you, Abby, for that gem of a short story. Which also makes it hard for me to say I didn't love the situationship. Not that I didn't like it, because it was just okay. I feel like it is really hard to put anything. I think it's like 37 pages, like something under 50 pages. It is so hard to develop characters, to develop the story, right? I know it's a really short prequel to the Doug and Maddie story. So it is really hard to build up and love and feel. And I mean, I still liked it. Like I said, it just was not the overwhelming love that I feel for most of her books that like I have on my shelf and all that. So I'll leave it at that. It's a Love Story, another arc that I read by Annabelle Monaghan. It was my first book by her, and I'll be honest that when I read the premise, I went, maybe I'll like it. But I've been meaning to read one of her books, and Nora Goes Off Script is one that has gotten really popular, and I said, okay, I kind of want to read it, but I saw this as an arc. I received it as an arc, and I was really excited. I'm glad that I read it because while I didn't necessarily see myself deeply in the female main character or necessarily relate to her traumatic experiences, I still deeply felt her pain and the need to fit into a box like a good girl, you know? And thanks to the character development, I feel like you can really feel what that person would have felt. And I also didn't love how judgy she was of Dan, the male main character, but it's also a reminder of how we judge really, really quickly, right? Of people and of a few things that happen, and you're like, oh, you must be this kind of thing. Oh, you must believe this kind of stuff. And oh, you must have come from this kind of background. And it's so easy to judge. And while I am judging her that she was super judgy, we all do it, right? So I guess I shouldn't duck her too much. And it's a cute story. It continues to develop like deeper and deeper. And I love the female camaraderie that comes out through it all, and that she is finally able to address her issues by addressing them straight on, because she has this really great relationship with her mother, but she is never able to say to her face this big thing that is looming, this big secret that she is keeping. And I'm just kind of like, just talk to her already, right? And she finally grows into that and is able to confront that and able to start be more of a straight shooter, because she's just trained, I guess, to be good, to be to hold it in and all this kind of stuff. So to see her come out of her shell and to become her own person and to learn, that is part of the huge character development that I really liked. Bottom line through it all about love, right? Is love is being seen and accepted as we are. Love is feeling free to shine where we are different. Like I said, I didn't give it 5 stars because I don't think it'll be one that like lives with me forever, like some of the other ones that I have felt really, really deeply, and that I know I'm going to keep coming back to. However, I really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down, and I cried for a large part of the end. So obviously, I felt all the feels. I recommend it. I'll leave it at that. Oh, also, I loved her dedication at the end to her boys and her husband, as a boy mom, as I've said before, and as the more extroverted half of the marriage. I could relate, and I just giggled to myself of when she said, I swear this is fiction. And the crazy boys in this book is not my child or my children, but it was just cute and I cracked up. And I will definitely be reading more of her books. Summer in the City by Alex Astor was another one that I read as an arc. First of all, I thought the story was super cute and I binged it. This is her first, she writes more fantasy, but this is her first adult romance, and I binged it. Being in the tech world for so long, plus being a working woman and mom that did not come from all this money, I totally got where the female main character Elle's view came from. I also really love the female friendships that were cultivated and that shone really, really bright in this. If you read it, Penelope and Emily are BFF goals. They're fantastic. I think you see this thread throughout it all that I really like the same gender relationships, and we need those, right? We need community. We need people to support us, and it's not just our partners. We need this in different ways as well in the same gender relationship. So I love that those are being developed in these books. Now, people say money can't buy happiness, but to be able to give that much to others, because the male main character is like made it in the startup world, like engineering genius. And so uh, he has a lot and he's very generous, and money cannot buy happiness, but to be able to give that much to others, or to be able to just do stuff on a whim, or to be able to help people that are in need and not have to worry about paying for these things is definitely a luxury. And obviously, we all would prefer to have that, right? Um, but I think there is also the other side. And I talked about this with the fame part of Up Close and Personal too, right? But there's a lot of things that come with fame where you lose your freedom, or when you're no longer a nobody, people are expecting different things from you. And so I think these are all interesting discussions to have, to bring to light, and what do we expect from the people that perhaps we follow, or the people that we put on a pedestal, or whatever it is. I think the one thing that really annoyed me was how hard-headed Elle was about the money. She was so focused on it. And I get it, I'm a frugal person, but she kept thinking that he didn't care about anything other than money or himself, when he had shown nothing but the opposite. And she didn't even know anything about him, wrote them off. Again, is kind of this judginess. There's a similar thread through all these romance books and stuff, right? But I know we're all judgmental, sadly, but it was so much over and over, and she was so caught up in it. Although she does get called out on it at the end by her friend, so it is addressed. It was just a lot and in your face and over and over and over. I was like, come on, okay, let's get through it. So that was my only gripe about that one. Now we're moving on to a romantasy because The Rebel Witch by Kristen Cacciarelli is, I've been waiting for this one. It is the second book to Heartless Hunter. It is a duet. And so this is the second and final. And I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, Gideon and Rune better get together. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to be this drama filled and it's going to be like super angsty. But I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, waiting for the shoe to drop because I knew something was going to happen, right? There's always something that happened before the happily ever after. And I only took a half star off because I did predict what would happen. Um, and the amount of miscommunications and assumptions, again, you can see what annoys me and what triggers me and what makes me take half stars off and things. It just drove me crazy. The miscommunication and the judgment, the assumptions, all of the assumptions. And this is usually by the female main character, which is kind of annoying. But anyway, drove me crazy at that point. With that said, I loved it. Highly recommend it. I was, like I said, on the edge of my seat. I just kept having to read it, read it, read it. The chemistry, the drama, the hope for a different people to be able to live peacefully and with love with each other. I don't think that's a spoiler because throughout it all, I think you know that there has to be some sort of resolve. And if you know the two are going to get together at the end, right? You know that these people are going to have to come together because there's witches and witch hunters. That's kind of the premise of the whole book. And for those that haven't read these books, Gideon is the ultimate witch hunter, if you want to call it that. Rune is a witch, but she's a good witch because there are good witches and bad witches, but they are the ones that are going to have to bring these people together. And so it is, all books are political, right? You can't really get around that, but I think it's a great message that different people can love each other and live peacefully together. And it just takes people kind of thinking different and living different and bringing people together um, to do that. So, great message with great storytelling. And then the last two books I read were spiritual books, faith books. One is Everything is Spiritual by Rob Bell. It was a bit all over the place, in my opinion, but the point that I took away from it all is that everything is spiritual. And all the different things that happen in our lives, it's not just about religious practices, whether you have them or not, whether you believe in religion or not, whether you believe in God or not. It's being present in the everyday moments, relationships, and the creativity and the way we engage with the world. At the heart of it all, it's love. And he talked about that for other stuff too, right? Love for oneself, others, and the world. That's what spirituality and faith comes down to it for me too. It was also really interesting to hear the part where he got thrown off when someone called him pastor after he stepped away from being a pastor after a ton of years. Um, because it was so ingrained in his identity and his identity for others, right? How they saw him. But it's this okayness to shift. It's okay to think, what is next? It's okay to grapple with the identity that we have had and what we're shifting into, what God or the higher calling, whatever you might believe, may be calling you into, and you let that spirit stir and you love yourselves, others, and the world a little bit better when you're in tune with what you feel you're being led to do, and how to love others better. That's my quick takeaway from that. And then Everything Happens for a Reason by Kate Bowler. The premise here is she had a thriving career as a theologian and a professor and family life when at 35 she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And having studied the prosperity gospel, which is the belief that faith and positivity will lead to blessings, she found herself questioning all of the ideas that she was raised with, and she faced them all when she had this sudden suffering. And she dismantles that comforting but flawed notion that pain has a divine reason in this raw and deep reflection that is this book. But instead, she embraces all the uncertainty of life, the beauty of having human connections, and the grace that is found in simply being present with herself, with the people she loves, and connecting in a deeper manner. And she also shares that presence is more important than trying to offer consoling words because sometimes we say things that actually aren't helpful. It might do more harm than good. So if someone is grieving or suffering, just be present with them. Um, Sometimes just fewer words are better. And we see all the honest thoughts that she has because at this point she is a new parent and someone that is grieving and preparing to leave the love of her life and her parents, her family, who's trying to do everything possible for her to have a chance, right? And spoiler alert, she does survive. She is okay. But in this, she is preparing for the worst because she's trying every single thing, but she's being told, no, you only have X number of months to live, right? And can you imagine being in that situation? But I will say I also had some conflicting thoughts though, because the fact that she did end up getting help that many can't, it was because of the connections that she had with both her academia, and the work that she is in. And so, don't get me wrong, I am really glad that she did and that she was able to survive and that she had this fighting chance and it ended up saving her life. But I can't help but all of the think of all the other people that have like really bad diagnoses like this and don't have those resources, right? And aren't able to get the same help. Um, and it really comes down to who you know and what ties you have or how much money you have. And that makes me really sad. And it makes me think, what can we do about it? What changes can we make? Um, so yeah, I would absolutely love if I were in the same position, I would absolutely use every resource. I would absolutely use every single connection that I had to try to give myself a fighting chance so that I had more time with my kids and see them grow up and more time with my husband and more time with my family and friends, right? So I'm not saying she did anything wrong by any means. Like every single person would do that. Um, I just wish we could do more for the people that can't advocate for themselves or the people that don't have the resources to do all that. Just a thought and part of my heart. Um, Definitely a thought-provoking read in so many ways, in facing mortality and what that means for us. What's important, right? How would you prioritize your life? And that wraps up my February reads. Which of these books are you adding to your TBR? And which ones are you recommending to me if I don't have them on my TBR yet? I want to know what your amazing reads of February were. Let me know in the comments because I always love swapping book recs with you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, obviously subscribe so we can keep these book conversations alive. And if you want to read more of the Abby books, head here because this is where I talk about all the Abby books that I did absolutely love. See you in the next video.